Let's come to order.
I'm going to introduce Ruth.
I hope everyone can hear me on Zoom. Thank you all and welcome to the April meeting of the Independent Neighborhood Democrats. I'm your Vice President, Matt Fairley. I am running things today because our intrepid leader, Julia, is out in Missouri asking them to show me the civil rights. Wish her all the luck. So before we begin, the leadership of the Independent Neighborhood Democrats welcomes debate and discussion on topics of concern to the members of the community by candidates for office and others. IND believes in the right to free political speech, but believes strongly that personal attacks, profanity, intimidating or threatening gestures or words, attempts to silence speakers or similar inappropriate behaviors are unacceptable. Individuals engaging in such behavior will be asked to leave. Those of you who are on Zoom, please make your screen name your actual name, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, do the same so that we know who you are and we can record you for attendance. Now, I think the best place for us to start is to talk about petitioning. We did what we were supposed to do. We got our candidates on the ballot. This year was a bit of a down year in terms of the total numbers that we got, but it doesn't matter how many you get as long as you get people on the ballot. There is one challenge for one of our candidates. Janice Purvis, our candidate for municipal judge, is facing a challenge to her signatures. She's optimistic it's going to work out. There was a glitch in some of her petitions. Not our petitions. Our petitions were perfect. The petitions done by someone else, not so much. But we're confident that she's going to get on. But we have gotten all our candidates what they needed, and now we have to go forward and actually get them elected. So a number of our races are going to be. Actually, I guess I should, give people some bragging rights. As always, we like to, give the flowers to the people who did the best job. So the top 3 petitioning this year were number 3, Joan Millman. Number 2, Ira. And number 1, by far, who thinks they know who number 1 is? Seamus Campbell. Seamus, who does not ever sleep. Many thanks to everyone in the club for getting out, for putting the hours in, putting the work in. It was very cold this year while we were out there, so it was not a lot of fun doing it. Many thanks to Joan for the work she did, and to Susanna, Seamus, and others. Lynn and others who sat at 10 Clinton. Jan sat at 10 Clinton and got this together. This is a group effort, and we're very proud of all the work that you've all done. So thank you all very, very much for getting this done and getting us going and keeping us the preeminent club in Brooklyn. But what that leaves us with is a number of candidates who have contested races, and a number of candidates who do not have contested races. Our district leaders, Alyssa and Aaron, will not have challengers. So that is good. Nothing to worry about. 3 of our judicial candidates, Celeste, Christina Ortiz, and
Danielle.
Locasio.
Linda
Locasio will likely not have challengers. Danielle Noel might have a challenger. She is going to get on the ballot, but they're actually kind of working with the Board of Elections now. It might not work out for them, but we might actually be able to get their candidate off the ballot, so that's good. But we may have a contested judicial election. Our Assemblywoman, Joanne Simon, for reasons we still don't understand, has a challenger. That is going to be a race that we're going to have to work on, but we're very confident in Joanne because everyone who knows Joanne knows that she is amazing, and we're looking forward to getting her elected. Our state Senate candidates, Zelnor, Myrie, and Andrew Granardis did not get a primary challenger. Worry about. However, as you remember, because they did come and sit our election, Jabari Brisport will have a challenger, so that's one race that we're going to have to work on. And of course, the 2 big races that we have to deal with in the 7th Assembly and the 7th Congressional District, our candidate Antonio Reynoso will have two challengers, Claire Valdez and Julie Wan. And in the 10th district, Brad Lander is challenging our endorsed candidate, Dan Goldman. So we have a lot of work to do this spring. We have a lot of campaigns to get out there and work on. There's gonna be a lot of fun things for you to do. I say fun because you wouldn't be here if you didn't find that fun. But we're looking forward to having that and getting out there and getting moving. At this point, as you know, we have a wonderful guest speaker. Ruth Messenger is here. We're gonna hear from her in a bit, but we'd like to give some of the candidates that are here a chance to come up and talk to us and just give an update on what they want to see, what they want to do, and what they want from us. And first, we have Harry from Dan Goldman's campaign.
All right, thanks so much, Matt. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about what's been going on the Dan Goldman campaign. So first of all, I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our petitioning partners. We managed to collect 11,000 signatures and I have paper cuts to prove it. It was a massive haul and wouldn't have been possible without the help of IND with Matt, Joan, Ira, an absolute superstar, Art, Hal, Karen. It was terrific seeing you guys at our weekly events at the Sunday Carroll Gardens Green Market. I missed the bread at the stand so much, I gotta go back for it. But moving forward, now the petitioning is done, we are full throttle on door knocking. We've knocked on over 10,000 doors in the district across Brooklyn and Manhattan. I have an army of interns that I'm working to the bone, but it can't be only on the kids, we need to get everybody involved. Recently, Ira and Art have been joining us at our door knocking every Sunday. We were in Park Slope last week. This weekend we'll be in Park Slope and Carroll Gardens. So love to have you guys join me on the door knocking. We're also doing some visibility events at farmers market, green markets, that sort of thing. That's the field end. On the fundraising, I'm very proud to say that our grassroots fundraising has raised our opponent 3-1. And the vast majority of these donations are below $100, contrary to what a lot of people might think. So our grassroots fundraising is thriving. And our labor endorsements are terrific. We just recently wrote out the endorsements from DC7 and the Carpenters Union. So the campaign is going absolutely swimmingly. We're so proud of the support we're receiving from the community because folks understand that we're in a very particular moment in history where we don't just have a bad president, we have a criminal president. And when you have a criminal, you need someone with the legal expertise of Dan Goldman. So I'm so proud to be on this campaign, to be working for such a stalwart against this administration. And I look forward to seeing you guys all out in the field in the upcoming weeks, all right?
You want to talk about building captains?
Yes, absolutely. So we're in the middle of, for our door knocking situation, we need people who live in large buildings who can help bring in our canvassers, who can, give us a tour throughout the building and knock. And then moving forward, oh, sorry.
Speak up.
Yeah, if anyone lives in a large building and would be willing to bring in some of our canvassers to help introduce our campaign, knock, leave literature, that sort of thing, that would be wonderful. And then moving forward, when it comes to get out the vote time, election day, we're gonna also need building captains. So I'll be sticking around after if you are interested in learning more about that. You can just come find me after the meeting. But yeah, that's all on my end. Does anyone have any questions or? Darren.
Well, yes, in one way, I know you want to go into large buildings, but in many cases, large buildings won't let you come in the building or go door to door. So a recommendation would be to get a captain in that building and do some dear neighbor letters, which I think are effective if it comes from somebody who lives at 15E and it goes to everybody in the building. So, and the other thing is, I know in Concord Village, many times Joe knows, she'd stand outside the building and say hello and collect, say, as people would come in. And that always helps, especially in a nice day. There's a building on Congress Street that has 8 floors. And if I stand out there, I could say just hello to about 80% of everybody as they come in, from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So I think you need to look at your big buildings and look at someone that can do a dear neighbor letter, and also a canvasser that's willing to stand outside and greet people as they come in or leave the building and say hello. Because going door to door is it's not acceptable in just about 90% of the cases, from my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So We definitely appreciate anyone who'd be willing to do some visibility outside their building, that sort of thing. We can meet, distribute literature. Also, if anyone would like to host Dan for a meet and greet in the rec center, we can definitely make something like that happen. That'd be wonderful for a fundraiser or just meet and greet, grassroots sort of field event. But yeah, fantastic point. Thank you.
We have a question online. Marvin, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it going, Marvin?
Hi. So just you had mentioned the growing list of labor endorsements that Dan has, which is very significant. But I think also because of his opponent keeps trying to claim that Dan is not a progressive, folks should take a look at the other endorsements that Goldman has gotten, including from Planned Parenthood Action Fund, and notably his opponent's wife had been a top official at Planned Parenthood. And most striking, I think, for people who really care about being progressives, is the fact that 20 presidents of NYCHA tenants associations in the district have formally endorsed Dan Goldman's candidacy, which is one of the best examples of somebody actually out there constantly working for working people and people who are underprivileged.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't be prouder to say that we're endorsed by Planned Parenthood Action Fund and by 20 NYCHA TA captains. So absolutely. So our endorsement list is growing, and they're meaningful endorsements. They're from people that people in their communities really trust, that have been advocating for working families, for progressive causes. And that's just sort of the campaign we're running.
Thank you, Harry.
So much.
As Harry said, he'll be here after the meeting if you want to talk to him about what to do for Dan. He's also left some literature up front. Is there anyone else here from any other campaigns want to say anything? Anyone online? All right, seeing none, I'm going to call up Cheryl Cook to introduce our guest speaker.
Hi, everyone. It's a real honor to welcome Ruth Messenger tonight to IND, to Independent Neighborhood Democrats. Many of you may know Ruth from long time politics. I think nobody knows New York City politics better than Ruth Messenger, which I've been learning as I've known her for many, many years. What I really want to say is just Ruth is one of the people who really urged me to get involved in local politics. And so when I moved to Brooklyn, I got involved in IND, and I really see you, Ruth, as a mentor. Ruth was borough president of another borough, not this borough, but another one you might have heard of, and was also a city council member for many years. I met Ruth when she was president of American Jewish World Service, which she did for I don't even know how many years, a long, long time. And she is now really involved in immigration. And so I'm delighted, Ruth, to invite you up. And if you don't see Ruth just, around the city, she's everywhere. You might see her on the seat of a bicycle. That's also how I met her. So it's a pleasure. This is why we get involved in local politics. We get to see everybody all the time. Thank you. And
Hello, Independent Neighborhood Democrats. I'm just doing this to watch the time. So, it always happens in my life, partly because I don't pay enough attention because I'm doing too many things. But I love this invitation from Cheryl. And then it was actually like one place that said, could you come and speak about city government? And one place that said, could you come and speak about what you're doing now? And so what I decided is, once I get to the timing clock here, that I would talk for 15 minutes. I mean, somebody's going to watch me, and I'm going to try to talk for like 5 minutes about some things about city government as I knew it and implications for the future, and about 5 minutes about the work I'm currently doing with immigration, and about 5 minutes about the state of the country, which is all we can stand. So on city government, look, you guys know it. Some of you have been doing it forever and ever and ever. But as activists in the Democratic Party, and I just heard about the petition results, that's what it's all about. But the longer history of city government is interesting to look at some point in time, without dwelling on it in great detail, but I know some people remember this. I just want to say that A long time ago, the structure of New York City government was a little bit different because there was something called the Board of Estimate. And we don't need to go mourning too much history. We lost the Board of Estimate because it was a violation of one person, one vote. Board of Estimate was structured, just very briefly, so that each citywide elected official, the three of them, each of them had 2 votes, and each borough president had 1 vote. So that's the way it was structured. And it was obviously a violation of one person, one vote, because the boroughs are wildly different in size, and each borough had 1 vote. So from a constitutional point of view, that's why it was challenged by some council members, and that's why it fell. I just want to say that I believe it was a loss. I believe that having a smaller body than the city council, where major land use issues could be debated without 45 people, and where the borough presidents could do what you know that elected officials do, which is trade things off, actually turned out to make a lot of sense. And so the only thing I want to say to leave in your mind is that, yes, it was a violation of one person, one vote. So is the United States Senate. And so when the country was formed, the idea was logical. There should be one body where every state has 2 votes, and one body where the representation is according to population. And whatever we think about it, it sort of works as an interesting balance for the things in the way the Senate does things versus the way the House does things. And New York City was a copy of that, and I just feel like it's a piece of history that got lost. So I just wanted to make that point. I also want to say, because not everybody knows this, but for a long time, New York City, as we just said, had 3 elected officials. They're now the mayor, the controller, and the public advocate. It used to be called the mayor, the controller, and the president of the city council, but don't let that confuse you. But I want you to tell me, anybody know why there were 3 citywide officials? Well, it was 2 or 4 or 5. It was because the Democratic Party, which ran the city, there was no visible Republican Party. The Democratic Party wanted to satisfy the 3 major ethnic groups in the city. Tickets for the Democratic Party every 4 years, there's no question about this, I'm not making this up, were put together. The one thing that was important, didn't matter whether it was mayor, controller, or 3rd position, there had to be an Italian, an Irishman, and a Jew. We have records and history. You think it's funny, but there's history of meetings at Tammany Hall in which they said, let's see, we have Procaccino, we need an Irishman, let's get Paul O'Dwyer. That's how the tickets were put together for years. And it's interesting that it was responsive to the way the city was. And in a sense, that process stopped because in many ways, the city got more wonderfully diverse with people of color, people from all kinds of different backgrounds. So you couldn't do quite that balance. So the putting the ticket together changed. But I just think it's an important piece of history. One other piece of history about city government that is of interest is that you remember all of this discussion in the last few elections where all of you as local Democrats were involved. Do we like ranked choice voting? Do we not like ranked choice voting? Is it good? Does it help? You know, you heard all of that. I just want you to know that New York City worked with ranked choice voting for many, many years. It wasn't called ranked choice voting. It was called proportional representation. But in the history of New York, elections for the city council were done by proportional representation for the same reason that we put in ranked choice voting, that is to be sure that certain groups could be heard even though, and get their representatives, even though they were not a majority. And ranked choice voting in New York, proportional representation, was stopped in about 1919 or 1920 because it worked well and it elected to the city council 2 socialists and a communist. Among all the other people it elected, those groups got their representation, and then people panicked. Oh my God, a little group of socialists and communists can get a seat, so let's get rid of this system. So that's just another piece of history. And then the last piece of history I want on city government, and then I'll move on and we can come back to questions later. The piece that repeats every 10 years. I know you're familiar with it, but I just want to say, because this city is so fascinating, so diverse, so neighborhood centric, so sprawly, all of those things. Passage of the occurrence every 10 years of the of the census, and then the resulting redistricting of city council, state legislatures, and Congress is amazingly complicated. And no matter what anybody tells you, totally fraught with politics. every decision about every line and every district based on somebody's version of politics or not politics. And we've had, in my lifetime in city government, we've had really, really interesting disputes with the officials. The one you might be most familiar with recently was the decision of one of the impartial district commissions. They're never impartial, guys. They're made by the appointments from people who are hold elected office. And with all due respect, your distinguished state senator or your distinguished congressman is going to appoint somebody who represents his or her point of view. And so there are different points of view and they are political. I mean, we should just be open about that. And we had this great experience, whatever it was, I can't count, but 2 years ago, where they decided to redraw the lines in Manhattan. They couldn't decide on the lines, so they brought in an expert from Pennsylvania who came in and redrew the lines. And I think you all know what he did. He took the districts that basically went down the sides of Manhattan, and he drew a district across Manhattan, which put Councilwoman Maloney and Congressman Nadler in a fight against each other, in addition to the fact that that meant that we were going to lose one of two city congressional people, sorry. It was, from the point of view of people who live in Manhattan, and I think enough of you know this, a total lunacy in terms of neighborhood. Wild difference and lots of passion about East Siders versus West Siders. And to have the 12th congressional district now run right across Manhattan is a challenge for, the candidates, was a challenge for Congressman Nadler, has been my congressman forever, and is a challenge for the people who are running in that district. And there are now, I think, 9 people running in that district, some from the east side, some from the west side. It was announced today, I have no comment on this, that the most amount of money in the current 12th congressional district race has been raised by George Conway. So let's hope that money does not buy elections, because for all of the candidates in that race, I promise you, the one I don't want to be represented by is George Conway. I want to say one other thing, although I've gone over my 5 minutes on city government. I've been doing this all over the West Side because I feel like my colleagues are not doing it enough. I want to say that Jerry Nadler, who beat me in my first election, Jerry Nadler has represented the West Side with distinction for 50 years. And he is retiring and there will be events for him, but when you are an informed political club, you have people representing candidates, you have candidates talking about what public service looks like. We should just, raise a flag for Jerry Nadler. At least 3 different times that I can think of, he's voted against his constituents or his party or stuck his neck out. And he's been rewarded by being recognized as somebody with like total integrity and smarts, and he just deserves everyone's thanks for what he's done here. And I think the congressman's representative would agree what he's done in Congress. Okay. So what am I doing now? 20 years in city government wasn't enough. I did lose an election for mayor, you might all know that. And then I spent 18 years doing, as Cheryl told you, global human rights work. Now in what I call my rewirement, I'm doing work mostly with immigrants on immigration issues. I just want to tell you a few things, which I think you know, and that is that this city has absorbed since August of 2022, which is when the Texas buses came to New York, at least 500,000 New Yorkers. Works very hard in the immigration community to call them New Yorkers. I wish you would. Census of this city up toward 9 million. They are going to be population that takes the jobs, helps to build and strengthen the economy of the city, the same way that my parents and grandparents and grandparents and great grandparents did. We need this labor. The construction industry, the food service industry, the hospital and home healthcare industry need low-level workers. It would be better if they were all unionized. That's the issue on which the mayor was being heard today. But to the extent that they are or aren't, there are jobs in those industries that really decades have depended on new people coming in. And we are going to be hurting if we don't do something about that. The one that I'm working on most particularly happens to be getting new New Yorkers into a training program to become certified nurse assistants. Those are the people who are going to take care of me. Quite seriously, the state of New York Department of Labor, this is a broader comment on government, The Department of Labor of the state of New York estimates that by 2030, which is 4 years from now, the state of New York will need 40,000 certified nurse assistants. That's because we are all getting older. And yet the state has no plan how it might encourage people to go into that business, how it might subsidize the training. And we now have a program which we're trying to get funded to help in that regard. Okay, something else about immigrants. I want to say that in general, historically, and certainly since 2022, the response in general of New Yorkers, of houses of worship of all kinds, all faiths, and community groups to help immigrants has been extraordinary. I'll be congratulating ourselves in a variety of ways for basically having a really welcoming and loving city. And I say that, first of all, because as you know, the news only covers bad news. So you only read where a community is upset. But I say it also because there's been a massive failure of our city government and our state government to respond to immigrants and immigration in a way that would strengthen and build the economy, that would invest in training. The simple answer, as you know, we were endless arguments about city requiring right to shelter, which is a law in New York City. So we had at any given time 50, 60,000 new New Yorkers in hotels and shelters. How little would it have cost to do a contract to be sure that there was English as a second language teaching in every one of those shelters and hotels for a day or at night? Nothing. Couldn't convince the Adams administration to do it. So we're working very hard, and we have a new, this is a preview, breakthrough likely success. Let me back up for a minute. This city does not look like and will not look like Minneapolis because ICE is doing its arrests in courthouses. If you haven't signed up with an organization to do courthouse accompaniment, you should do it. You should at least get some people from the club to do it and report back so that people know what it's like. People show up for their appointments. The federal judges, who are not judges as we understand them, they're not in the universe of elected judges. They are appointees. The immigration judges are appointees of the Department of Justice. They operate in little tiny rooms called courtrooms in 26 Plaza and 290 Broadway. They are spectacular. I mean, I've been there, and I want to say, as somebody who fights with technology and my phone all the time, they use Google Translate spectacularly. An immigrant will come in and they'll say, what language do you speak? And whatever the person says, then the judge says, wait a minute, and does all kinds of things with some Google Translate, and then everything is suddenly translated into Creole or Spanish or Pular. It's very impressive. And we're making decisions based on cases. Then we know this because we had someone in one of the courtrooms. Someone came up before one of the judges. She said, wait a minute, is this an asylum application? And the accompanier said, yes. And she said, oh, well, all asylum applications are being terminated. Anybody else who is in this courtroom who's here for an asylum application, it will be terminated. And one of the people who works with us said, how can you do that? You haven't heard the individual cases. And she said out loud, we are under new orders. So, I mean, I'm not making this up. Those judges who have track records of having been listening to individual cases and trying to extend people's stay and giving them new dates and giving them time are now being fired by the President of the United States. Right? That's going to be, we're going to move into my third section in a minute, but that's part of what I want you to understand is that there is a lot that's happening because we are normal human beings dealing with our lives and our work and getting people on the ballot and enjoying, takeout for supper or whatever. It's hard to see some of the things that are happening into the future of the country. And one of them is now that the president is clearly given orders, one, telling the judges what to do, which is to terminate people's applications, and two, to fire judges whose track record he doesn't like. So the judges who, remember about 3 months ago, the Turkish woman who was at Tufts and gave a pro-Palestinian speech, and the ICE people found her on the street, jumped out, surrounded her, and detained her. Some excellent lawyers went to bat for her. She was released from detention. Those judges are now being fired by the president. So I'm trying to say this and sound a little bit like doom because that's the notion that I feel like I need to give you in this presentation. So ICE is here. President of the United States, although he lost in court today, has been trying to take away temporary protected status from Venezuelans, Somalis, and from Haitians. And as somebody who did global human rights work, I promise you, I know more about Haiti than most people. Haiti is a government country right now that does not have a government. It's being run by marauding gangs. Gangs buy their guns from the state of Virginia. We are complicit in every possible way. But that is not a country, and there are a large number of Haitian Americans in America. You know, the ones in Springfield, Ohio that the president went after, but there are large numbers of Haitian Americans in Brooklyn. They were losing their temporary protected status, which was what the Biden administration did to any group whose country was not a good place to return to. They were given, that's what it sounds like, temporary protected status. They could get work authorizations. The Trump administration is doing away with that, although I'm told that they were stopped in court today. So we'll see how that goes. There was one great article, painful article in the paper yesterday. I just want to mention it because apparently it was April 15th. And the question for the immigrants who are working, should they or should they not pay income taxes? Because they are working. Some of them are working in places where they get paychecks, even though they don't have official work authorization. But they know, either because the money is taken out or because they've found it on their own, that a good citizen pays taxes. And so they believe that they should follow the law, look what's taken out, file the return, because they're hoping to apply for green card citizenship, and they figure that that's the mark of a good citizen. Except that the federal government has authorized the Internal Revenue Service to turn over anybody who is suspected of not being documented, not having full documentation, turn over their names to the department, to the immigration department. So these are just examples of just on the immigration issue of the situation in which we live. I will tell you how I feel about this. I'm doing this work with immigration. Oh, there's one piece of good news. Forgot that, sorry. We are about to launch, not public yet, but it will get funded, a habeas program that will be as good as the one in Massachusetts, which means that any immigrant or any immigration lawyer who has somebody going before a federal judge in any of the downtown buildings will be able to call a hotline, provide basic information, and the NYU Law School, God bless them, will provide an endless number of private lawyers to file habeas petitions. You have a habeas petition filed and you get detained when you leave the courtroom, we can at least go back before a court and find out where you are and start the process to get you back out of detention. So it's exciting that we're about to be able to launch that. Okay, I way overstayed my own time, so 2 minutes to say I've sort of hinted on, and that is, I think that as we may have lots of questions about immigrants or history of city government, I'd love to answer anything. But we are in a dangerous point at this time in this country. The Congressman's representative referred to it. This country is sliding into fascism. And it's hard to keep track of the issues, and it's harder still to talk about it to a lot of people you know. But we have a government, a president who has gone to war. To someone, out a declaration of war. We have a president who pardons and or fires people at whim. We have a president clearly who lies. And now, in ways that I don't know, maybe they will help us in the long run, we have the president of the United States who has decided that it's appropriate to attack the Pope. And in case you thought that that was not enough, the president attacked the Pope, said the Pope didn't know what he was talking about, and sent out a picture of himself as Jesus with the president of the United States, really, if you follow social media. Vice President of the United States today, who is a convert to Catholicism, which I fully respect, announced that the Pope didn't understand the theology of the Catholic. Now, you cannot make this up. If you didn't all know me, you would really think that I had lost my mind. I'm pulling these things out in the newspaper, but they're all true, and they're coming at us just at a speed, which is the intention of people like Stephen Miller. They're coming at us with a speed that you can't quite believe each of these things, and so you focus on something, or you go back to your work, or you thank God get people on the ballot. All of that is fantastic, but the overall picture is really serious. So I would just end by saying the other big thing I'm doing is working with a couple of organizations that are raising money for people from Congress from all over the United States. So, you know, we live in New York City, it's wild, and we have 3 in Manhattan, we have 3 days. congressional races. Those are of interest. We can talk about those if we want, and we don't need to. But all over the country, we have current first and second term Congress people whose positions are in jeopardy. We have people running and looking to flip seats. We have several key Senate races, which if we won would give us a serious margin in the Senate. And so for many, many people, you know the options. You can do telephone calling, you can do postcarding, send money. And I would urge you all as active members of the Neighborhood Democrats to do some or all of those things. Any of you who have people in other states, find out about those states, because some of those may have friends who live places where an individual vote is going to make a wild difference in a congressional or a Senate race, and you should know that. We can win the Senate seat in Ohio. We can win the Senate seat in Alaska. I think we can win the Carolina. But all of these candidates, as you know, need money, and $18 makes a difference. I promise you, I was a candidate for. So let me stop there and say I will take any questions except about the poll.
Ruth,
Yes.
it's good to see you after 40 years. Because I remember when you were at the council with Karen Greitzer,
Yeah.
June Iceland, right? And Abe Gurgis, the whole crew.
Yes,
And I
but
was-
let me just say, when I got elected to the council in 70,
Yeah,
Seven.
that's right. And I was working with Tom Cute. But I mean, it's glad to see you still as feisty as you ever were. But I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
From the days when we were in the council, where a lot of people thought it was just a rubber stamp, to now the council is becoming more aggressive. How do you see the evolution of the council going into the future?
Okay, I think that's great. There's a great story about the council from right before I got elected, where I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to remember who it was, some council member who preceded me, but where one of the council members who most often voted independently, with 5 or 6 people who voted against the leadership, happened to say to his colleague at the desk, it's hard to sort of stand up all the time and vote no when everyone's voting yes. And his colleague basically said, "You think that's hard? What do you think it's like to be a council member whose every vote is dictated by his county leader or by Tom Cute, who never is allowed to have an independent thought?" So my actual claim to fame, seriously, when I was on the city council and was most often voting in the minority and organizing people to vote in the minority, is I told your boss, Tom Cute, every 2 Wednesdays, I went into his office before the council meeting and said exactly what I was gonna do and exactly how many votes I had. Since I almost never had a winning vote, they really appreciated knowing what it was gonna look like. Got along fine, but occasionally we beat them, but very rarely. I think that what's happened is really good for the health of the city, and I don't think it's happened enough. I mean, the composition of the council has changed. The power of the county leaders has been going down significantly. And the council is impressively female and impressively people of color and significantly progressive. But I would like to see more of issues like the ones that have come up in the last week. We've seen a few where the council and its leaders raise questions with the mayor. I might be on the mayor's side, I might be on the council side, but I think that level of dialogue and debate and occasional, hopefully, negotiation and compromise is much better for the city. What was going on when I was there, which was a distinguished and wonderful minority led by me that almost never want to vote.
Thank you.
We have a question online, John Leva. Unmute yourself, John.
Yes. Hello, Ruth. First of all, I want to know I don't know if you mentioned a website or anything. How can we support the immigration work you're doing? Just get involved or support it or anything. And then second, you and I have a special connection because when I was 19 years old, you appointed me to Community Board 12 in Upper Manhattan. You took a chance on a college student, and here we are, full circle. I'm
Thank you.
55 now, so that was a few years ago.
It was a few
Thank
years
you.
ago. I won't tell you how old I am, but it's older than that. That's really great. Before that, actually, what was he asked a question?
How to get involved with the.
Oh, yeah, on the immigration issues, I think there are really like 3 ways to get involved. one that makes the most sense for the club is to be supporting, which is the name of the bill in Albany, and let make sure your state legislators are heard on that issue. It does several things to protect the new New Yorker. 5 different provisions. Another one, because you're a congressional representative here, it's on the right side, but is to deny funding to the Department of Homeland Security, although you need to recognize that ICE has all the money it needs. So even though we've made it a symbolic, don't give any more money to the Department of Services because they fund ICE, ICE squirreled away more than enough money. It's doing the evil thing, what I think are the evil things that it's doing. But then if you go beyond those legislative and budgetary pieces, most of you live someplace where there is a local house of worship that is providing care to immigrants of various kinds here, but just community organizations that are doing massive work and helping people in various ways. They all need support. They all need volunteers. As things get worse, they need more volunteers because people are afraid to come out. I just would make one point to you that I didn't make, and that is that to the extent that it's high, that immigrant families are frightened about ICE, one of the things they do is keep their children home from school, which I would do also if I thought I might be detained in the middle of the day and that my kids would have no place to go at 3 o'clock. But it's not only terrible for those kids, it's significantly hurting our education allotment from the state, which is based on population. So find a local group to work with, and if you're not sure where to put your energies, I'm shameless, so I'm the co-chair of the board of the Interfaith Center of New York. We're doing full-time immigration work, and we're the ones launching the habeas petition, and we would love to have people help us financially or get in touch with us. Check out our website.
Well, that's what I meant. I wanted to support the work you're doing specifically.
All right, Interfaith Center of New York.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you've done. You're
Okay, and
amazing career.
thank you. I always believe in giving credit. So Gail Brewer, whom you all know, who was my staff person for the first 12 years I was in government, 10 years I was in government. Gail Brewer is the person most responsible for saying, and she wasn't just doing college students, John, she was like 15 years and up, we should put people on the community board. And she's done that. I did it because she told me to, and she's done it her whole life.
Oh, whoever you like.
Oh, okay, yes.
Who do you like for the 12?
For the 12th, I'm supporting Michael Asher. And I would just say, I'm not supporting George Conway, although he sent me letters today. But it actually goes back to what I said about the district. There are good people running. I'm not George Conway, but there are some good people running. But one of the challenges is, as you know, from being a Democratic club, the issue for people in this city who want to be in elected office of moving up, finding a way, whether you use city council, whether you do state legislature, is hard. And in that district now we have arguably two people, that's where I'll focus, who try to do that route, one on the west side, one on the east side. And then of course only one of them can win. Plus, we have all kinds of other interesting people like George Conway and the grandson of President Kennedy, and it's a pretty crazy race. And some people trying to run for the first time. But anyway, I support Micah, and I would just say, without doing a big political speech for him, I would say that he has more experience on policy issues than almost anybody, because he was the policy director for the governor.
We got time for one more question. He's had his hand up.
Oh, and you didn't ask me, but I support Antonio.
Just quickly, for the immigrants that are filing returns, how is the IRS getting around tax secrecy in releasing those returns? Because I prosecuted tax crimes for a long time, and both at the state PTF and also the IRS, tax secrecy is a religion to.
But not for Donald Trump. I mean, I don't know the particular mechanism, but this is what I was trying to say with my too long speech. All kinds of squirrely things that are happening at the behest of the president, which, with all due respect, again, in my mind, Congress is not pushing back on nearly strongly enough. There are Republican members of the U.S. Senate who should be ashamed of themselves. Who have they're a different party than mine. I understand that we don't agree on the issues, but they have distinguished records as elected officials, except for now, where they are so afraid of being primaried by the president that they're saying nothing about his lies, about his distortions, about, if nothing else, about going to war. We're in a serious war in Iran, which Congress has not even been asked to consider and has no idea what's going on. So it's pretty serious. But so I don't know the answer to your question, but it's absolutely clear that everyone agrees that.
All right, Ruth, thank you so much.
Thank you. You didn't keep your 15 minutes, but thank you.
That gave us a lot to think about, a lot of work to do apparently. But now, saw her come in and I'd like to invite up our esteemed Assembly member, Ms. Joanne Simon, to give us an update on what's going on in Albany.
Well, good evening, and yes, I am a prime sponsor, co-sponsor. So just FYI. Obviously, this is budget season and we are still do not have one. And that is a concern. As you know, I guess it was Pataki's era when legislators don't get paid. As Joan will tell you, that actually hasn't been much of a motivating factor when it comes to battling over the budget. People find a way and don't get coerced into a budget because they're not being paid. So we're still at it. I hear there are some movement, some things that the governor is listening to. But we're not anywhere near where we think we need to be on the big sticking point issues. So that has been, although it's not part of the budget, it's kind of simultaneous, right? And that's immigration and, a version of New York for All, if not that bill, right? And there is certainly some movement there, but there are some sticking points as always. The Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act and the proposed changes that the governor has made. Let me say about the NYSERDA memo about cap and invest. This conforms to absolutely no methodology at all that anybody can discern. They were going to get back to us with how it is they came up with those numbers. They haven't yet. It doesn't conform to anything that had been proposed previously. There's wiggle room for sure in doing something on cap and invest. The sort of doomsday scenario that was proposed or outlined in a brief memo by NYSERDA does not seem to be something that pretty much anybody has any faith in. And that's pretty much around, throughout the state, legislators throughout the state are like, what gives? But that still, there is a lawsuit outstanding and that is very much, I think, driving some of the issues on the part of the executive. So what that will be, we don't know, but there is room for some movement. We don't have anything yet as that is clear. We certainly don't have any legislative language. So we conferenced this quite a bit today, these various issues. And there is, movement, but nothing to write home about yet. Same thing for the SECRA amendments, which if you know the State Environmental Quality Review Act, so it's an Environmental Quality Review Act. It is a disclosure document, the EIS. It's not substantive in a way that I think people may misunderstand it. But a number of there are certainly some ways that we could streamline SECRA. In New York City, SECRA is less of an issue in terms of the delays for affordable housing because it really has nothing to do with, we have very detailed zoning laws and we have our own City Environmental Quality Review Act, which is, just to confuse things, also called SECRA. And there are parts of the state that don't have any zoning, and so they kind of rely on SECRA as if it was kind of a zoning mechanism, which it is. But in the city, the big barrier to building affordable housing is financing. HPD takes easily 5 years to get through HPD to get financing. So the big issue in New York City is really financing, and the controller in the budget hearing agreed with me. Right, and said that that's the big issue. That's the big issue for affordability in New York City. Secra may make a difference here and there in some particular projects, but much less so. It's a very big deal in other parts of the state. And there are certainly colleagues of mine who very much want some reform of Secra because that is what has kept it from having affordable housing built in a lot of places. And so we haven't found that sweet spot. One of the issues that is proposed is to not require it where there is previously disturbed land. Now, that was done in a bill by two of my colleagues for infill because of really not wanting sprawl. And in other places we have sprawl. We have no sprawl here, by the way. I don't know if you've looked at downtown Brooklyn, there's no room for sprawl. But almost everything is previously disturbed and toxic in this area, right? Because we were like the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and, you know, the tanneries along the Gowanus Creek in in early days. Thank you so much. I'm concerned because if something had an environmental review done in 1970, when some of the standards were different, like PM 2.5, for example, is the particulate matter for air quality. Now it is, but it used to be 10, PM 10. And when I was first organizing on the Gowanus Expressway for an MIS, which was a short we really were able to get the feds to agree to let us use 2.5 because we knew that's what it was going to become. But that was the late 90s. So if that's not that long ago, that the standard really was PM10. And so there's a lot of concerns about what those standards were and whether that would in fact allow for development under today's environmental under, you know, our state environmental laws. So there are a couple of issues like that. The CLCPA I talked about. Big issue is money. The city and its shortfall. Obviously, the PA tax, which the governor has now supported, which is great. We've been talking about doing this for some time, as you might recall. But it's good and it will make a big difference for the city. It doesn't address all of the other issues. So one big issue is healthcare. We have not yet moved on that, but part of that is we haven't really talked about money yet because we're still talking about the damn policy, which is the environment, which is immigration, which is whether we do what. And so a number of the issues that are sticking points right now are still policy issues and they're not issues. So there's still room for a lot of things to be funded. I'm certainly supporting the effort to provide health insurance for those people who are stuck in the middle and make a little bit more than twice the poverty level, but not enough to afford health insurance. That's a lot of young people, by the way. And so two of my colleagues, the health chairs, have a bill to provide funding for that. And I've sponsored that bill as well. We do have money set aside that could cover that because the feds did give us the 1330 that we weren't sure about, so we got that. So there are these other issues that are floating around that we don't have any resolution of yet. People keep coming to me and asking me about that. And you know, they want to know how they can move the ball. And sometimes I don't know the answer to that because really we haven't had those conversations. I'm not in one of the three people in the room with the governor. And it's got to be a three-way. So we have to find a way that we can connect those dots before we can, you know, address that issue. But we've certainly encouraged people, a lot of the advocates, to continue to talk about those issues, to continue to brief members, because members don't always know that much about that area of law, for example. And a lot of members don't know much about Secra, for example, or they weren't around when the CLCPA was passed. One of the things they are doing is they're filing, there's an amicus brief going around with legislators, current and former legislators who voted on the CLCPA. Steve Engelbright is the lead amicus on. I'm one of the amici on that as well. Basically pointing out that, you know, we passed this law intending to be a national leader. We didn't pass this law intending to have the same law as every other state that was weaker. We did it particularly to be out in front, to be a leader, a national leader in this. But also New York State has a tremendous, is greatly impacted by the global oil market, right? And so you're seeing now with what's going on with the war in Iran, how much it has affected people's bottom line. That is clearly kind of, in my mind, making the point that we need the CLCPA. Because we cannot become energy independent until we actually are relying on renewable energy. And that's not gonna happen overnight, but very easily you can get solar up and to scale. And it's very reasonable and it's much cheaper than relying on natural gas. So, but there is a huge, very, very well-funded lobby from the natural gas industry, for example. So that's kind of what's going on. I did pass the 100-foot rule bill, again, the chapter amendment. It was why they want to debate a delay of just a delay in the start date for 2 hours. I don't know, but it was another long debate. And also I was able to pass the Wage Payment Integrity Act, which is that, you know, people can't have their wages stolen by judges who are deliberately misreading the law. And so we've clarified that. And so that's a bill I share with Senator Gennardis, and it's passed both houses now, and it will be on its way to the governor. So I'm fairly confident that that bill will be signed. I just don't know when, right? So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Is there any movement in Albany to revise the 99 law, which is where if a real estate company or builders build buildings with under 99 units, that the laws are different versus the ones that build it over with 100 units, and therefore the rules say they can have, you know, less affordable housing, you know, apartments, that they can also skirt the labor laws and things like that.
It's a big issue that is becoming a big issue because of the 485 tax exemption bill that we did a couple of years ago, right? Which replaced sort of 421A. And yes, they are doing 99 unit buildings. And so that has come up, for example, a lot of labor is concerned about that. I am not, it isn't part of the budget conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's really not a budget bill. Somebody may have a bill about that, but I don't know. You know, I'll look into it. But I do know it's an issue and it's becoming more of an issue, right? So for quite some time, it was there, but it didn't matter as much. Right now, it's mattering. And so it's coming up more in conversation.
It's a major issue in affordable housing, because if you do like 98 units, you can actually skirt the labor laws, and you can say, well, you know, instead of having five affordable units, I can have 3. But if you have it over 100, you're required by law to do certain numbers. So I thought Albany would kind of look at the idea of the housing crisis in New York and say, hey, we got to change this.
As I said, there are people having conversations right now. It's not a bill that is before the House, but that doesn't mean it won't be. But a number of people are talking about it. And you're right, it's a concern, yes.
Turn around and your candidate hat.
Oh. Yes.
And tell us about the race and what you need, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, we need people to knock on doors. We need people to pass out literature. I don't have a palm card yet. We're working on it. And you know, contributions. We're going to be having a big community fundraiser later in April, maybe early May. It really depends on when I can count on having a night time free from the budget. You know, my opponent has you know, gotten on the ballot, has raised funds. She's getting some, you know, matching funds. I will as well. I've, you know, certainly am eligible, I believe, for more matching funds than she is at this juncture, but, you know, that could change. You know, just recently, and somebody, of course, looked announced endorsements by some people who in fact did not. So that's something that I'm addressing and will be addressing. And you have to be careful sometimes that people understand the conversation you've had with them. And so, you know, we are preparing for will be, I believe, fairly aggressive from the opponent. And but we're ready. And we will be ready. And with your help, we'll be even more ready. Thank you. I'm very happy to, if anybody wants to volunteer or help out in any way, please let us know. Thank you for asking. And I brought toiletries.
We have more here.
That's nice. Yes, 2 bags. I went to a certain store who shall remain nameless and bought a lot of stuff. Because I usually don't go to that store. Anyway. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Judge Fairley, how are you?
God willing someday. I litigate car accidents. I litigate car accidents for a living, so I've been following the governor's proposals.
See, that's the other sticking point.
I don't necessarily know that I agree with her proposals, but I do agree as someone who has seen a lot of accidents from the MTA, seen the bus videos, seen all that. There is a lot of fraud out there, and it is a real problem out there. So while I may not agree with the governor's prescriptions, her diagnosis is not necessarily wrong. So what is it that you think is?
Parts of her diagnosis are wrong.
Not all of it. Some of it is wrong, some of it's right. But like, what do you think is really gonna happen? Like, what's your prediction on where this is going?
I'm not, well, I
You
think
can give a prediction.
she feels, as I understand it, very strongly about her proposals. The problem is, number one, the insurance companies have not agreed that they will lower their rates as a result of this. And at the max, you're talking roughly $200 a year. By the time that happens, because it'll take a couple of years to go into effect, the rates will have gone up anyway. And so the $200 will be, subsumed in a subsequent rate hike. So it's negligible, the amount of benefit that might accrue to the policyholder. The other issue, of course, is whether or not it's comparative negligence, and you can have people who are seriously injured who get nothing. And we want to make sure we don't empower the insurance companies to make a killing, and people who are in fact harmed and really hurt. I'm not talking about fraud. I'm talking about people who are hurt, and people are hurt often are actually able to get compensation. The other thing is that we have fraud laws, and we can make our fraud laws better, more effective, and actually enforce them. And that is an issue, right? So any kind of criminality, obviously, the first accident isn't necessarily obvious. There are fraud rings. They just caught a bunch of people earlier this week, or maybe late last week. So yes, that does happen. But to assume that the rates are really a reflection just of fraud, I think is not true. They are allowed to raise their rates a certain amount every year, and they do. And by the way, insurance companies, they make their money through investments, not from the policyholder. It's not like a shoebox that you put your money in and then you have a claim, you take your money out. That money is invested. They are making money hand over fist, right? Geico had a 9% increase in that's billions, right? And Geico is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Geico is not a government insurance company, right? Once upon a time. So the reality is the insurance companies are making lots and lots and lots of money. They could reduce your rates if they wanted to, but they haven't. So the mechanisms in the proposal right now are not there to actually achieve the goal that I think is a laudable goal that the governor has laid out. And nobody is interested in supporting fraud. You know, we're all very happy to address that issue. The question is this the way to address it? And will it actually yield the result that it is the goal that the governor is seeking to achieve and that we would like to achieve?
Before we move on to your next question, Joanne, Susanna wants us to point out that we can join Joanne this Sunday, April 19th in Cobble Hill for Know Your Rights training.
That's right.
So please add that to your calendar to keep you on.
I knew we were doing it, but I couldn't have told you the location and the time.
There is a.
It's
You're
in my
welcome to do
newsletter.
that. There's a link and we can maybe get that out.
I literally just created a link on our website, indbrooklyn.org/April 19. I'll bring you right there.
Check our calendar.
Good, thank
We'll-
you.
It's very useful with my cell phone.
Yeah.
Good.
we
So,
have-
and I'll let you, on the car insurance thing, let me just tell you a sort of sad story. We have been inundated with emails, right? We've gotten marketing materials saying, tell your assembly person, da, da, da. And you'll save all this money. And then we were getting inundated with emails. Well, it turns out that the emails that have been sent, 3 out of 5 of the emails sent to my office are from people who the numbers don't work. That phone number doesn't work. It's out of order. I called a guy who was at 32 Court Street, his residential address. If you know Court Street, you know nobody's living there. So I called him because I used to work with him years ago when I was in law school. He said, Joanne, I'm living in Boca now. I'm not practicing law anymore. I said, oh, well, apparently you're living at 32 Court Street. You sent me an email about auto insurance. So there was an article in Newsday. I'm happy to share that article with you because we have it as a PDF. Somebody made a PDF of it because I don't have access to Newsday either. But basically, almost every district has had these fraudulent emails that colleagues of mine have had people who died. One colleague had somebody in prison sent the email, and a third grader in her district also sent the email. Chuck Levine had a friend of his that he knew well, it's in the article, who was very well known in Nassau County. And he sent an email, but he died 18 months ago. And so a lot of the support that we're getting, we can't count on is really support. It seems to be bots or somebody bought a third-party list. And if you're misrepresenting that you are in fact a person and you are not, there are potential criminal charges that would accrue to that. So, it's out and about. I'm sure that I know people are looking at it. But it has been a very real concern because the people who will do the best under this proposal is Uber. And we talked to people who said, I never sent that. No, I'm not an Uber customer. We don't know where they got the data from. So we're really concerned about the policyholders, the, man on the street kind of policyholder, and protecting victims so that people who are harmed are able to be compensated for their injuries. So anyway, so just so you know, that's what's going on in our world.
Question online.
Hi, Joanne. Thank you.
Hi.
I was really curious, right? When I started seeing this insurance thing pushed, and who are the lobbyists or the corporate interests behind it?
Well, Uber is definitely behind it. There are people who support it because they would have less liability. I know the MTA supports it because obviously there's a concern that people are looking for the deep pocket, and where there's fraud, if you're gonna, look for a deep pocket, the MTA is one. And so, we understand that. But again, the question really is, do we deal with it as fraud, or do we deal with it as taking away victims' compensation? And letting, at least unless there's some change, letting people like Uber off the hook completely, even if their driver causes the accident. So that's a big concern. So there's a lot of that detail to be worked out. There are probably other corporate interests involved that I don't know. I mean, a lot of them are sort of represented by different lobbyists, so it's sort of a shell relationship. I'm not sure who else. Some of the emails have come from a group, the New Yorkers for Affordable Rates or something, they created the group. But then others are coming through a platform that really is just these platforms that exist to just help you generate and send emails to elected officials. And some of those we've identified, if the person's name comes in all caps, It's not real. And, but there are 4 platforms that are doing that. And one of my colleagues printed out she was getting faxes. I haven't gotten many faxes. She got faxes, she had faxes this guy. Again, all caps. So, you know, it's true, whenever there is anything that is perceived as costing somebody money, people don't want to change, there's going to be lobbying, and there's going to be a lot of money. So far, from what we understand, Uber has spent $9 million to fight this and support this bill, which is going to produce very little, if any, you know, affordability for the policyholder. And I'm sure they'll spend more, and I don't know who else is spending money, but.
I took an Uber and while I was in the car, I got a message, do you want your ride to be cheap or something to that effect? And then fill this out and I guess that would send one of those automated messages to you guys.
I think 27% of the cost of the Uber ride is for Uber's insurance. But Uber is a big insurer, a big user of insurance, and they have had a lot of liability because of you know, crashes that are caused by their drivers, so. Or even not caused, but they're part of it, so. In any event, there's a lot of money there. I mean, there was millions and millions spent against me last year in the 100-foot rule. And so that happens, and you know, you just have to, that is, and you have to read between the lines.
Joanne?
Thank you. And thank you. Remembering where the Know Your Rights training is critically important, as Ruth Messenger mentioned. I mean, obviously, this is a huge issue. And the House passed today a bill that was a discharge petition. 11 Republicans voted to keep TPS for Haitians. What I don't know is how we'll get to the floor in the Senate, but I think that that's a very important sign. This whole immigration thing is not laying well with a lot of people, including a lot of, and it's becoming a divisive thing in MAGA world, along with the Pope.
All right, before we close up here, we got some upcoming events we want to tell you about. Next weekend on April 25th, our Maya Kartenberg is running with the Park Slope Civic Council, an event. Add it up. Add it up. It's a civic sweep. You can check in our email. There's a link to it where they'll be going to do some litter cleanup. They're gonna be doing some work for beautification. It's good time there. They're also gonna be collecting hygiene kits. Now you may see beside me here, there with Joanne, we have been collecting hygiene kits. These are toiletries and everything that are for people. So if you had brought some tonight, as we asked in our email, please bring them up here. Next, I'd like to call up Joan Millman to talk about an event coming up on May 14th, the Heights Players.
Well, we're instituting, oops, almost didn't institute anything. Something that we had done years ago. Brought out a performance of the Heights Players on May 14th. This is for decades, a non-for-profit group, but we have a lot of athletes in the downtown area who are often at work, so they do show up there. It's a musical based on the movie 5. We brought out the whole theater, and it's a senior event. We've already reached out to 2 senior groups, 2 senior centers, even the Watermark. And about 34 tickets have been distributed as of now. So I don't want to be sexist here, but if you're a senior and you go to IND, let us know. And you can certainly come. You can bring a friend. And it starts at 7:45. The location is at 26 Willow Place. There's a Willow Street, there's a Willow Place. It's in the church. It's accessible, accessible. So please let me know if you a friend or a neighbor or a colleague or a relative.
Thank you.
Okay, apparently I couldn't hear you on Zoom, Joan, so I'm gonna give a quick recap. We have bought out a block of tickets with the Heights Players for a showing of 9 to 5, the musical, on May 14th, and we're doing that to sponsor for a night out for seniors. So if you know senior organizations or you know any organizations that would be interested in that, you get in touch with us. That's with Joan. It's a very great event that we're looking forward to. Vicky, you said you had something?
Yeah.
Speak
so,
up.
and Ruth was talking about court watching, the
Yep.
immigration court, which I do with 2 different groups. And if anybody wants to know more about it, it's, both easy and challenging. You don't need to be a lawyer, you really are there to give the support for the person. But yeah, you too can be stared down by ICE. It's been very rewarding. I can't say it's been fun, but it's been very rewarding. Happy to talk about that again.
All right, our next meeting is May 21st. Oh, Joanne.
Pronouncement.
Yes.
She texted me, but I didn't have my phone with me. So on April 30th, we have a Java with Joanne. And usually they're in little coffee shops somewhere, but this time it's in a City Point downstairs where near like Trader Joe's and others. Because there are a lot of people living in downtown Brooklyn and it's a convenient place and there isn't like a good coffee shop to kind of, you know, stop into in that area. So we're doing something a little different by doing it at City Point. That's on April 30th. What time? Oh, in the morning. In my newsletter. You know, she didn't tell me that.
Show up at the break of dawn and just wait.
Know Your Rights training is at 1 o'clock. What time?
I said, show up at the break of dawn and just wait.
Just wait.
All right. Anyone else have anything they'd like to announce?
Java is at 9:30 a.m.
The best part about that is Susanna's avatar is holding a cup of coffee as she announced the Java with Joanne. All right. Anyone else have anything they'd like to announce or any other events?
Takes a village, you know?
All right, our next meeting is going to be May 21st, right back here at Brooklyn Law School. God willing, Julia will be back for that. But all, thank you very much. We've had a great meeting. Thank you.
Bravo, Matt.
Oh, yeah, motion to adjourn. Second. Yeah, okay. Second, good. All in favor? Good. Yay.
I can get that.
I can't find the cursor.
How are you?
You know, I have to look.